At a young age, I was fortunate enough to be able to travel a lot with my parents. They were antique dealers, and we would spend days and weeks rummaging through bins and markets in Thailand and Myanmar, and finding objects that were interesting, that had some kind of historical value, objects that told a story. And that was my first experience with art. I don't think I even went into a contemporary art gallery till I was in my teens. And the way that I approach art even now, I think, is informed by that early period of finding objects that kind of connected with history. With art, I don't think, for me at least, there's ever been a starting point or a stopping point. Everyone makes art as a child, and then some of us just find other things to do with our time afterwards. So for me, making art every day as a child, and then making art every day as a teen, and making art every day as a university student, and now making art every day as an adult, it was just kind of an evolution, a natural evolution. And I don't really see there ever being a starting point or a stopping point, and nothing would change that. So even if I was a billionaire or if I was in jail, I think I would still find a way to make art every day. I like to make things that are highly detailed and somewhat naturalistic. So it's important to me that they have a kind of detail that's eye-catching and natural. And the other thing I like is some kind of message of philosophical nature. So maybe they make you think about an idea, or it brings some kind of emotion, or some kind of idea that you have to chew on that comes with it. And lastly, I think that it has to be somewhat beautiful, and it can be beautiful in a sort of not traditional way. It can be something that can be beautiful in darkness, or beauty in something that you wouldn't typically find beautiful. But if I could get all three of those things, that to me is like what I aim for. I went to the University of Washington, and everybody there was going into the tech field, and I decided to do the exact opposite. I went into ceramics. So while everybody's doing a very analytical thing where they are kind of a little cog of a big wheel, I feel like ceramic allowed me to be tactile and hands-on, and I could kind of control the process from start to finish. And that was something that really appealed to me. One of the things I like best about ceramics is it makes something that is actually affordable. For me, I've always wanted to make something that normal people could use in their everyday life. Ceramics gives me an opportunity to make an art piece that you can kind of use every day. And in a way, it gives a kind of intimacy to art, where it's not just hanging on a wall. It's something that you can drink from, have a beer with your buddies and use. And so that gives it a kind of utility that most art doesn't have. I think the first thing I ever made out of clay was a skull when I was 7 years old. And I think the reason for that was that my parents were big antique collectors, and they had a lot of skulls. They were beautifully carved ethnographic skulls, like a silver Kapala or a carved Dayak skull or an Asmat warrior skull. And they were things that I saw as things of extreme beauty, and it was something that I always connected with and saw as not something that was scary or horrible, but something that was a very beautiful object in and of itself. After living in Thailand for the first couple months and trying to just navigate this place, I started visiting various studios and trying to find somewhere where I could fire the small ceramic pieces that I made. And I went to some, and they were too big and not really welcoming. And I went to some that had really specific things that they did and that didn't really suit the work. But one time I was taking a motorcycle, and about 30 minutes outside of town, and I just crashed it into somebody. This person ran out, and they were trying to help me. They took me to the hospital. I got bandaged up, and afterwards went back to their house, and they had a small ceramic studio. And I've been working there for the last 6 years. So this kind of crazy accident turned into my life's work. And I've just been very grateful to have found this place. And it was such a strange experience just crashing into it. And I've been crashing into it ever since. Thai art has been inspiring to me in the way that it's very maximal. When you enter a Thai temple, it is like bling, and it's kind of more is more. And when you travel through Thailand, you can see that the aesthetic is something where it's gold, it's mirrored, it's paintings on the ceilings. It's really more detail is better. So in Thailand, it's 50 ingredients. It's sweet and salty and sour and spicy. And it's everything all at once. And I really like that. I like it in my own work, and I've tried to adapt that aesthetic, that more is more. I think that I'm captivated by detail and having as much meaning and energy compact in such a small space. That's something that's always appealed to me. I think the biggest misconception about independent artists are that they wake up at noon and go to their studio and smoke pot and stare at a wall for an hour, and then they're divinely inspired. And I don't believe in any of that. I think that a good artist wakes up just like anybody else and goes to work, and they find the process of working inspiring. Working online and presenting things in the gallery are very different. I have really enjoyed putting things online lately. Rather than a gallery where max of 100 people can maybe walk through an exhibition in a day, online it could be 10,000. And there are people from all walks of life who can experience your work in that platform. So it's been a real experience learning a whole new art of presenting things and creating video and content to make it so that people can really have a feel for it. And for me, it's been finding people to work with that can help me realize that vision. I make things out of ceramic, but I really am not quite talented with video. So connecting with people who can help present things and to make my vision into a reality that people can see through a screen has been a unique challenge, but it's been an interesting endeavor. Selling art is something that's quite difficult, but I think that it's almost healthy in a way, because in order to do it successfully, I think you have to divorce yourself. You can't put your ego on it and then put it for sale, because it's really hard to price your ego. So you have to kind of divorce yourself from it and go, it's a process of letting it go and being free in the world and hoping somebody else appreciates it. Finding that balance between artistic integrity and a price people can actually afford has been very difficult, but I think of that as a personal challenge, and I always do my best to deliver the best possible thing I can at a price that people could actually afford. So the early days as an artist were quite tough. First going to university, and that's very much like a kind of coddled place where they take care of you and everybody is paid to be interested in what you're making. And then when you're outside of university, it's a little bit more difficult. It was staying in like a tiny apartment and working within an arm's length of my bed and just barely scraping by. And that was that was 7 years of that. I think that going through that rough patch and having to fight through those starving artist days kind of make you focus and make sure that you really want it. So if you can kind of forge yourself in that period and come out the other side, then I don't think that there's anything that could stop you now. Every time you start a work, it's a kind of battle, and you go in and the work tends to fight you most of the way through. Sometimes you think that something's going to be easy and it's hard, and sometimes you think something's going to be hard and it's easy, and it always surprises you. And I think that that's what I like the most about it. No matter how many times I do it, I never know what I'm going to get when I open that kiln door. And that is what keeps it exciting. And so that's the hardest part about making art, but it's also probably the most rewarding. The tiki community has been amazing. About 2 years ago, I started noticing that there were people with tiki in their handle that kept buying and supporting and liking and sharing my work online. And it wasn't until 2 years ago that I ever even went into a tiki bar. Going in there, it's amazing. I like the music. I like sitting in a dark room and drinking and not even having to watch sports. And I'm so honored to have been adopted by that group of people. I would say that the main downfall of aspiring artists is that they burn out emotionally. So most people think that the artist is starving and that they won't be able to continue because they've run out of all their finances. But I've rarely seen that to be the case. And sometimes when that happens, people can still find a way to get back on it. But it is possible for you to burn out emotionally. And I think the best way to avoid that is to be around a community of like-minded people who are going through the same struggle and finding people who like and appreciate what you're doing.